can already start with a short introduction. We're here again for the second legal design workshop, and I believe that everybody has joined the first workshop last week, as the both sessions follow each other up. For those who may have missed the first workshop last week, I will shortly introduce our fantastic speaker again, Anna. Anna is a legal designer and also the founder of Aclara Legal Design. She worked as an attorney in international litigation practice for more than 10 years, and designing became an increasingly important part of her communication and inspired her to start Aclara Legal Design. Anna, during the first session, you taught us the basics of legal design, methodology, and mindset. And if I'm correct, today you will reflect on the home assignments from the participants, and you will guide us through some exercises with visual tools. So I'm happy to give the floor to you.
Thank you, Caroline. It's great to see everyone here again. I hope that I don't recognize all the names, so I hope you were in the first session too, but if you weren't, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna do some new things, and you just be open and curious, and I will have this will be a very interactive session. So I would like you to turn your cameras on if you can, because this is legal design is always very participatory, and I'd love to see your faces, and then I can also see when you're still working on something, or when you're done and you're just staring into your room. So please turn on your videos if you can. Judita, I think I saw you during the first session as well. Yes, thanks for being here. And the other ones, please don't be shy. Please join us. We'd love to see some people's faces. In the meantime, I'm going to remind you of this a couple of times during the session. In the meantime, I am going to share my screen with you. And we're going to kick this off. So today we are going to do the follow-up of last week's session, and that means that we have been exploring the basics of legal design, the methodology and the mindset, what things are involved in a legal design project, and we've explored a little bit how to work with visual skills, with visual tools. So one of my favorite tools to work together and work more visually is Miro. So what I'm going to do now is share a link to a Miro board in the chat, and I'd like you to click on the link and go to the Miro board. So let me just stop this sharing. This is the Miro board. So if you, hi Vikas, yes, nice to see your face. I remember your face from last week. Thanks for joining again. If you're new to Miro, so I call it it's like a digital canvas. It's an online visual collaboration platform. If you're new to Miro, it's a tool that is used by millions in design, but also in lots of other areas. I talked to a publisher this morning that's where they use this, legal tech teams use this. So it's a very useful tool to work together, even if you don't do any visualizations. So I'm going to go into the Miro board as well. Please see in the bottom right area of your screen, you see the zoom, the plus and the minus sign to zoom in and out. So we're working on a large canvas. So if you get lost, you don't see where we are, just zoom out and see where the other cursors are. So the visiting artisan, visiting innovator, I see you get like temporary names when you log in. And how many people do I see here? I see 3 or 4. So I need a couple more. We're with more people in this session. So please join the Miro. And when you do, visiting creator, we have one more. When you do, and you've zoomed out, you see a couple of areas with some content on it. I'd like you to go to the the top left side of the canvas where you see some things on the canvas, and those are post-its. Can you see them? So yellow and blue post-its and the title that says post-its. So I'd like you to come there to that area of the Miro. Is anyone having trouble with Miro? I know it's weird if this is your first time. It's actually a very easy to use tool once you have the basics. So if you are now at the post-it section, let's see where you hang out. Visiting Innovator, you should go to the left and more to the top. Yes, perfect. So you'll see post-its here. Post-its are like in legal design, there's often joking about post-its that they're the gold of design. Well, I wouldn't go so far, but having small notes, having flexible notes is very useful to all kinds of processes. So what you see here is I put a few post-its down. And if you look in your screen to the left, you have this toolbar. Right, so the top one is to select, so the arrow to select. The second one, templates, we're not going to use now, text, and then the fourth one is a sticky note. And if you click on it just one time, you see you can pick all kinds of sticky notes in the color that you want. You can always change the color later, you can change the size. And then if you double click on the post-it, you can write on it. So please go ahead, get yourself a sticky note and write your name on it. So I am this pink note that I just added. Jerome, I see. Judy, great. Caroline. Okay, and I think we have a few more people in the room, so go ahead and get yourself a post-it. I'm gonna move them around like this. You can just click and drag and move them anywhere on your canvas. Now, if you look at the top post-its that I just moved all the way to the top that says labeling, you'll see that you can also label each post-it. So if you click on it once, you get the toolbar on the top for the post-it, and you can like make a high priority category for the post-it. You can also vote on this post-it by adding emoji, for example. And if you click on the emoji that's on the labeling post-it, you will get like the emoji with the hearts that will go up. And you can also add, if you just click on it once, the post-it and go to the top bar, you will see all the emojis that you can choose from. Okay, Dominic, Vikas, I'm gonna move this over to the names. Right. And then another option is leaving a comment. So you can click anywhere on the post-it or on the canvas to leave a comment on the post-it or on this section, for example. So this is a very useful way to work together because you can exchange ideas. And now it's just me talking, but normally, of course, you would be talking together. And you can share ideas, you can add suggestions, you can vote on the best suggestions, and you can organize information because it's so flexible, you can move around things. So during the first session, I showed you that you can work with visual tools in PowerPoint. You can use shapes, colors, etc. But I also said like PowerPoint is just a tool. It's just a blank canvas. It's about how to think visually and learning how to work visually, whether it's PowerPoint or it's any other tool. So Miro is really designed for this kind of interaction, visual collaboration. So of course, it's going to be way better than just a static PowerPoint slide. And we're going to explore a couple of more things that you can do here compared to any regular white canvas. Oh, I see some thumbs up coming in. That's great. And celebrations. All right, let's go. When you're in the post-it section, let's go to move to the right, where we go to mind maps, the section that says mind maps. You see this kind of spider form. I'm also going to laugh really hard. Did you see the reactions to the top right of your screen? That's where you can leave a reaction. Okay, mind maps. We explored mind maps in the first session. I already said it's even better to do them online digitally, because you can always change things around. You can move anything. Oh, head on over to the mind map section, please. Otherwise, you won't see what I'm doing. So, yeah, I can keep track of you. I know exactly where your cursor is. So, in the mind maps, you'll see that I can change. If you just type on the text, you can change the text. You can change the color of the lines, and you can add endless branches to this structure. So this makes it a very, very versatile tool to make mind maps. And it's also one of my favorite features in Miro that other platforms don't have as well. It doesn't work as well. So next time you're making a mind map, consider making it in Miro if you want to be flexible. Then if we move down below the mind map section, you'll see that I included a template. So moving a little bit down to the structures, formats, and overviews. Yeah, I see some people still lingering at the post-its. What's going on here? Something very, hi Dominic, hi visitor. Okay, that's nice. Some comments. Let's go back to the structures, formats, and overviews. You see the blue and the black boxes, and it's sort of a timeline. So this structure is just a template that I got from Miro. You see the left toolbar, in the left of your screen, and the second icon from the top is says templates, and that's where you can pick any kind of templates. There are a lot to choose from, ready-made templates to use. I prefer making my own because I do this all the time and I always know exactly what I need. But I definitely started with using the templates as they are. And you can change anything here in the design, the colors, the style, even the typography. So this is very useful if you want to set out a timeline, for example, if you want to discuss who does what at what stage, you can use this for anything. And if you made something yourself, then you can also save it as a template to use over and over again. Yeah. Okay, see, yeah, you can move all the items, and if you just want people to fill in this structure, for example, this template, but not move everything around, then you can just select whatever you want to select, and then press lock, and that will keep some of it in place. I'll show you later as well, because for the preparation for this session, I also locked some elements. All right. Then over to the next part. If you go to the left from the structures template, you see a meeting evaluation. So this is actually a format that I regularly use when I work together with someone. Like this morning, I did a training with a co-trainer, and I always do some kind of evaluation after a session. So this is for a regular meeting. It's very useful not to just do the follow-up tasks, but also what was the use of the meeting? Was it useful? What could we do better? So it's a very simple format. It's super easy to make, and it poses the right questions for your evaluation. I see some new frames coming up. Yeah, that's nice. You can make it into a frame. It's nice to frame the different kinds of content together. And then over to the most juicy part for today's session, the follow-up assignment evaluation. So let me just think. I mean, I would love to know. I'm just gonna go to full camera view so I can see all of you and hopefully some more. Jerome, oh, I see you have your camera on as well. And also for others, please turn your cameras on if you can. I'd love to know whether you've been able to work on the assignment after first session. So I asked to see if you have an NDA that's used within your organization or that you've made, depending on your role, and to evaluate basically if it works for the people that it's intended for. And I asked you to see if you can interview them, ask them a couple of questions about it, and also to think about the structure. So let me just, before we go back to the Miro, I'm going to share my screen just in case people did not join the first session. So you see in my slides, so talking to your stakeholders, setting the goals, listing limitations, and setting the hierarchy. So that were the 4 basic tasks for your own NDA, or if you don't have one, you don't use one, the example that I put in the materials. And so these were the examples that I showed. So, and before we go into this, can you just show hands if you were able to use your own organization's NDA? No, okay, not. Have any of you been able to work on this assignment? It's okay if the answer is no, it's okay. Okay, then that's perfectly fine. I mean, design is always about iterations, and so my training is always iterative. So I'm just gonna take you along on this process. First of all, let's go back into the Miro board. If you look at the Miro board and the assignment evaluation, you'll see that I made this this canvas with 7 questions and 1 extra category that asks what you learned about the assignment, what elements of the document should be kept, what input is available. And you can probably see from the questions that I ask here that it really focuses on what your observations are about the NDA, but also about how the stakeholders respond to the NDA. It's when you talk to your users, and I mean, I always say users because that's what we do in design, but your users can be your clients, but can be external stakeholders as well. If you're in court, then the judge could be considered to be the user. So the user is a very broad term of someone that will consume your information, in this case, the NDA. So if you all have a look at the follow-up assignment evaluation board in Miro, then you'll see that these questions really ask you to reflect on what you learned from the document based on talking to your users. And you know, it can be difficult, especially if you've been the one that's drafted the NDA, but also if you just work with it on a daily basis. It can be very difficult to look at it objectively and to ask open questions. So when talking to your stakeholders, you don't want to ask like super obvious questions like, is this document clear to you? Because, you know, if someone asks you if you are smart enough to understand what you put in front of them, I mean, a lot of people will say yes, because it's like politically correct and they don't want to look weird. Or they say like kind of, or sort of, or so it takes a little bit of time. So as you can imagine, the same as doing a job interview, or I don't know, going on a first date, the exact words that you use when talking to your stakeholders, and the way, like your tone of voice makes a difference in how people answer these questions. And the objective of talking to your stakeholders or users about your NDA is that you really want to gather as much input from them as possible. So it's not about checking whether you did a great job, or just checking that they don't have any objections. You really want to learn from them. Well, of course, it's a bit more theoretical when I explain to you this way, instead of after having experienced this type of interviewing. But I do want to encourage you to, you can either take a screenshot from this, the assignment evaluation, and or I can send it to you afterwards. This really gives you a solid basis to evaluate the conversation you've had with one of your users about your document. Okay, it's a, I mean, it would have been great if we would have someone's example to discuss now, but since we can't, I'm gonna head on over to something that I created for the NDA. Does anyone have questions about doing this evaluation or the interview with the users or stakeholders? I know they're curious people in this group. No? Okay. All right. I'm going to share my slides again. So these NDAs I explained last time. So these are just very random NDAs that I just Googled NDAs and got a couple of examples. Of course, like almost any business uses some kind of NDA, and there are countless examples, very extensive and very brief. But I think usually they look something like this in terms of structure and length, especially the simple ones. So usually 1 or 2 pages, and the very, very sophisticated. I mean, I've redesigned one that was 12 pages. I thought that was already quite long for a generic NDA, not even for a specific business relationship. So we discussed last time, or no, I'm just going to ask you, because I'm not absolutely sure if we have new people in the room. Can someone please, if you were new in this session and you didn't join the first, can you just show your hand? Okay. Oops, where's the one? Emma, so you're new in this session, so I'd love to hear your views. So what your first impression is of these 2 NDAs.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for giving me the floor. Oh, it looks like a legal document.
Right.
When I look at these 2 documents, I'm reminded of a joke. The joke says, "The large print giveth, the small print taketh away."
Right.
In the sense that, you know, if I was an average reader, I'd probably look at the title, see 2 signatories, you know, quickly just zigzag through the text, turn to my lawyer and say, "Is this okay?"
Yeah. What should I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah. And just for my reference, are you a lawyer?
Yes, I'm a lawyer, and I was
still practicing lawyer. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And have you ever drafted NDAs?
Yes.
Okay. So what can you say something about the differences between left and right? What do you notice?
Oh, the right one has not as much text as the other one, and it's not aligned. It's not justified. So my OCD is killing me right now.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, it says short form in the title, and that's something that people love. We love short form. The right one doesn't have the titles that the left one has, and that's really useful, I think, because if you zigzag through it, through the left one, I see like 4 major parts and the bolded titles or subtitles, which kind of helps me to get oriented in the document.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, thanks for your insight. And for the other people in this session that were there during the first session as well, what you may notice now is that Emma mentions a couple of things that weren't touched upon in the first session. I also asked this question. So because we are all people, we're all have our own preferences, our own experience, our own biases. So we notice different things. Oh, I see Judita has raised her hand. What do you want to share, Judita? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I agree with Emma. Maybe I can mention that I started drafting my NDA, but I started and finished with emojis since I didn't have enough time to draft a whole NDA. So maybe I can share my 2 emojis, which I think partly describe what the NDA is about.
And sorry, go ahead.
I'm looking how to share my screen.
Yes.
It's no big deal. I just.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please do. It's the bottom center. Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Sure.
Yes, now it's starting to share. Yes. Okay, great.
It was the very beginning of my work.
The beginning of your work. Okay. And it basically so very visual, and it says like stay silent. That's how I interpret this. So okay, great. And have you thought about the structure? By the way, we see your Teams chat now.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I can't read it anyway, but just that you know.
I'm wondering.
You can stop sharing if you want.
Yeah, I'm wondering how to stop.
At the top of your screen.
I see.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. So
yes, I would use big titles, subtitles, maybe brackets, small brackets, and more visualization.
Okay, great. Well, on top of what Emma just said, if we have another look at the example NDAs. So what Emma also said, like that's interesting. So the right in the second NDA, the right side is not right aligned. Actually, Emma, I know that it's a personal preference whether people like this full I think you call it full alignment, yeah, left and right, or just left alignment. I think it's in terms of like design research about readability, it doesn't make a big difference. The most important thing is that it's left aligned for readability. So if you don't have the right alignment, that really depends on the person if they are bothered by that or not. If you look at the example left, that where you have the full alignment, you can see that if you use full alignment, then the spacing of the words differs per sentence. Some people don't mind that at all, but especially for people with dyslexia, for example, this makes it a lot harder to read. So it's I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do this. Just know that it can be your preference to do one or the other, but especially for people with dyslexia, the left one is harder, made more difficult also because you don't have a lot of empty, like a lot of white space left and right. So it's like they really wanted to use every centimeter of the page.
Talking for myself, the right alignment is the obsession of lawyers. Right. Usually the rest of my colleagues don't care. Right. Usually lawyers are the ones who are disturbing the rest.
Right. Yeah, I think I recognize you probably have cultural differences as well. It may not be the same in every country, but I think I know a lot of lawyers who also think you should use full alignment. But it's not anything scientific that's better for reading. On the contrary, I would say. One more thing that I can highlight, when you look at the left example, so you have section 1, confidential information, section 2, covenant not to disclose. The numbers are for the lawyers, right? The people scanning it has no use of having 1, 2, 3, or 4, because they are not gonna like pick the third or something. So it's totally fine if you add numbers, but it's just to navigate lawyers, basically, or if you want to refer some section of the agreement to one of the other clauses. But that's not very common when you have such a short agreement, for example. So, and you can also sometimes refer to like the explanation about what is confidential information, right? So so far, these observations. Looking at this next slide, I did this workshop with ASML a couple of weeks ago, or something, a similar workshop, and we had a look at their standard NDA. And I said, well, they did some research, they talked to stakeholders, to users about this NDA. And I, in preparation for that session, I made this redesign. Now, this, in my opinion, this is a really bad design. Do you know why? I haven't done any research. I haven't talked to people about this, right? So you can't really redesign anything if you don't know exactly who the clients, the stakeholders, the users are, and what they need from that kind of communication. So that's why I would like, if I were in legal design school, you won't pass this class, right? If I make this. And that's irrespective of how it looks, but it's just because I didn't do the basics. I didn't talk to the stakeholders. In this case, if you would have your NDAs, I didn't talk to your stakeholders. But I did make this because I've seen a lot of NDAs, and I just decided I'm going to take a very general audience. Let's assume I have a super general audience who have lots of different personas. I'm just going to go for the meatier option. And knowing what an NDA is and what a lot of people need from it, because this is not my first NDA. So you want it to be short and clear. And I may have mentioned this during the first session as well. A one-pager is great, but if you fit this much information on a one-pager, it's better to make it a two-pager, right? So it's not about trying to get everything on one sheet. It's about trying to make it understandable to people and easy to navigate. So what I did here, so the actual text is not included, but I can fill this in with the 3 lines into 3 lines of text, and you will have a very basic, but I think can still be, like if you look at this, so the names and the signatures, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 short paragraphs in between. Now, if we would rewrite that into something accessible, then it would fit in this design, right? So just to show you what is possible if you take a new approach, and I can leave all the icons out. This illustration is just an illustration. This doesn't convey any information. This is just decorative. And that's fine, as long as you realize that it's just decorative, right? These icons have more of a function, like decorative elements can also be like eye grabbing, and that has a function. But the icons on the right are also for your navigation. By the way, you also see that I use a Q&A structure, right? So what information is confidential, ? And then you have the answer, because that is how people think and how they have questions in their head. So what should I do with this, right? So does anyone have any thoughts, ideas about this version? What do you think? What if someone sent this to you? And it's not, I mean, you don't have to be polite. Just give me your impression. What if someone sent this to you? What would you think?
I think it is very clear. If you're not familiar with the information and a non-disclosure agreement, I think it is also useful to start with a definition of confidential information. But as a lawyer, I'm thinking right now, is all the information included in the agreement?
Yeah. And what would you add? What do you think is not in here?
Are there enough details? But I think it's a bit the problem that we sometimes draft an agreement too complex for the case, but just to cover our liability sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not working with non-disclosure agreements. But when I compare with some other agreements or legal opinions, for example, there's too much information in it. But maybe it's just because we always think about details, and probably this would be sufficient enough for the case. Yeah, I think it is really clear, and I also recognize the structure because I started a quick draft of the non-disclosure agreement in PowerPoint, and I also started with the definition of confidential information because I think that's the most important part. Otherwise, the undersigned and the parties don't really know what's the essential of the agreement.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And I think that if you call a definition, you have a higher chance of people not reading it, because people think that it's not important to read definitions. That's lawyers' work, right? So if you have a definition of what confidential information is, that's of course very important for the user. They have to know, like, so what information can't I just share on social media or whatever? But I would name it differently than a definition. Also, something to be aware of. So I made this very simple and it's not filled in with specific text. But one main thing that comes up in design research when you make something very short, concise, and visual is that if it's too short and visual, people don't really consider it as something legal, or they don't think it's official. So they won't trust it as a legal document, or don't really recognize it as such. So if you would like, your goal shouldn't just be to make it very short and very visual, because you can like miss the point. I recently did a design project for a client that made something as a short first sketch, made something very short. So I was really proud of a client who did that by themselves, like to make it super, super short. And actually in the design process, we started adding more text and adding more extra words, and adding more like visual elements that make it that give it the look and feel of a legal document, because you still want people to trust it, and also to understand that this is really binding, and this is not just information that you get on top of any contract, right? Okay. I'm going to head on to the last section of this training. Yes, I'm still on time. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about how we read, so how we see text, and how you can use text on your canvas. Now, during the first session, we delved into the basics of visual design, and that also explains a bit about composition, layout, etc. But this is more how you use text in your layout, in your design. But one of the main things nowadays is for people, like lawyers are used to reading a lot. I mean, I know, like on a daily basis, you read a lot, so you're very proficient in reading a lot. But still, when you go to a website that's poorly designed, just like it takes you probably 20 seconds, and you're like, ugh, never mind. This is poorly designed. The sentences are too long. Never mind. You just click on the red button, right? So that's because we are now accustomed to read in F patterns. You start at the left top, and you go downwards, and your eyes skip to the right when there's something relevant. So that's why websites have short text in bits and pieces that's easy to scan, and it's easy to scroll downwards. Oh, I don't know what that was. So we read in F patterns. And when you know that, it's something to keep in mind when you're designing something else, because we consume so much by being on the internet and being in apps all the time. So we read in patterns also. We don't read every word and every letter in a sentence. That will be extremely slow, and we're fluent with reading, right? So you jump from one word to the next, and we skip words, whole words and parts of words. At the end of the sentence, we jump back to the last part of the word, or even the second last word. Now, these are called saccades. I see. I forgot to add the actual title, so I'll add that for you. So saccades. This is just how our brains work. So this is universal. The only difference is if depending on what language is your first language, you read from left to right, or right to left, or top to bottom, or the other way around. But no matter what your reading style is, we read in these saccades. And so you want to have a comfortable flow of these saccades. And that's when we talk about alignment. So that's why you want to jump back to the left, where everything is aligned perfectly, one below the other, because that makes your saccades easier. Yeah, so this is how our eyes work and how our brains consume text. Because of these saccades, you can understand that if your eyes want to jump all over the place and skip words and parts of words, you need to make the words recognizable, or even common. So common words are easier to read because our brains recognize them. So that's why it's so important for your reading speed and for your comprehension to use commonly used words, and that makes a huge difference. One of the basic rules in design is to keep it simple, and that really is the case for text as well. And I know you all know this, but it's not just a personal preference, but it's actually vital to people even trying to read it or trying to get them to read past the first paragraph. A little bit more about typography. So typography is the way you use language expressed in text on any surface. There is, as a graphic designer by heart now, I can spend hours explaining about the typography because it's super important in graphic design, but I'm just going to share the highlights with you. You may be familiar with the difference between serif fonts, who have these little feet, and sans serif fonts. There are lots of ways to categorize fonts, but this is one of the main. And I know lawyers like Times New Roman, that's very decent looking and reliable. It's also very boring. That's okay. Boring can be okay. If you want more modern look, I would suggest choosing a sans serif. And usually on screen, it really depends on the font, but in general, you could say that sans serif fonts are easier to read on screen. In print, it doesn't really make a difference. Well, one font can make a big difference compared to another, but in general, you can't really say that serif fonts are better than sans serif or the other way around. Well, letter size is also very important, of course, in presentation, in documents, but if we go back to this, so this is still like this text size is okay-ish. This one is too small, and also the space between the sentences is too small for comfortable reading. So I don't know if there are any Americans in this session, but especially in American contracts, you often see the use of all caps in terms and conditions and contracts. And I know that comes from case law that, well, in my own words, kind of says that you have to put emphasis on important parts of the contract. And if you only have text to work with, if you don't use visuals or any other tools, then your options are to make something bold in capitals or underline them, basically. So the tradition developed of using all caps, but all caps is much more difficult to read. So I suggest avoiding that wherever you can, unless you really think based on case law you need to. And that's because our eyes jump all over the place with these saccades, and you want to give your eyes some anchor points. Now, if you look at these capitals, you'll see that, well, apart from the J, all letters have the same height. And that means you have no visual anchor points, and your eyes are, of course, extremely fast in doing this. But if you use lowercase with just uppercase at the beginning of your sentence, you'll have these pieces sticking out on the top and the bottom, and those really help your eyes to read. So this is a bit about, this is research that shows why all caps should be avoided if you can. If it's just one name or a title with 3 words, it's fine, but not for full sentences. Well, I just showed you on the NDA example that with these saccades, if you have very short sentences, the saccades are really close to each other, and you jump all over the place because you constantly go to the next, to the next, to the next. So that's why it's uncomfortable to read sentences that are very short in space. And equally, with very long sentences, the saccades are too wide. And at the end of the sentence, your eyes take a bit more to jump back to where you started. And that also slows down comprehension, just reading speed and comprehension. Well, equally, when your lines are too close to each other, that slows down reading and comprehension because the saccades need a bit of space. And so this example to the right, that is comfortable. And I think in Word documents, for example, using a spacing of 1.3 is usually comfortable. Some people probably already do that, and 1 is almost always too narrow. And especially when you have very small text size, you really need to up the line distance. Well, we touched upon alignment a little bit already. So central alignment takes effort for our eyes because of these saccades, because you jump to the next line and you don't have the clear alignment to the left that serves as like an anchor point. But for some like small titles, for just a couple of words, that works fine. Left to right, left alignment is almost always the preference for readers. Well, the full alignment, we discussed that already. So for dyslexic people or other people who have trouble reading, is not a favorite option. And right alignment, of course, is never really a good option, but in design, it can be a good option. For example, these are a couple of my projects. If you look at these board manuals here to the left, you will see that these titles and the subtitle, I can zoom in a bit, are right aligned. So if it's just a couple of words and it fits within your overall design, it's fine to use right alignment. Also here you have right alignment in this timeline, and you have left alignment here. So it really depends on the design, but right alignment is not a faux pas in design when used correctly. And also you can have differences in alignment if you work in columns, for example. Then the hierarchy, well, as I think Emma mentioned, no, Judita mentioned, so you want us to have a large title, a subtitle, and enough white space, right? You can also see that I even used two different typefaces, two different fonts in the same design. That can also work when choosing correctly. And this whole design with the white space and the titles help to scan, something that both NDA examples didn't really facilitate. All right, I want to talk to you about, like, if you are interested in legal design and you want to develop more skills, are there any more questions about typography and use of text visually? No, let me see if I have some raised hands. No, that's about it, right? Okay, right. Then legal design and what you want to get out of it. So I'm curious, is there anything that we discussed during this or last session that you think you want to work with more within your team or by yourself? And think about how you can make that happen within your team, because it can be difficult to do something new when the others have no idea what you're doing, and they're like, what, Myro? What is this modern thing in the world of law? So can you please share your first ideas of like how to work differently and more user-centered in your work? Does anyone want to share? And can be also as easy as just making a mind map every once in a while, or even if you don't do anything with any kind of visualization or redesigning it, talking to your users before you draft something is already a step in legal design. So you don't have to get super courageous with designing your own stuff. Even talking to people what they want from their legal documents can make a huge difference. Okay, so I hope that at least I've managed to spark your interest how to work differently, more client-centered. And I want to, after this session, I want to leave you with some suggestions and to explore. I included on my website a favorites page, because a lot of people often ask me about how to learn more about legal design, what tools I use, or what books to read. So I included my best tips on my favorites page. So you can find anything that I use on a daily basis, and the books that I read that developed my design knowledge and skills. Online learning, I included Legal Creators, for example. That's an online learning platform for legal design. And even though I host custom training for clients, if it's just you, if you want to do individual training, I highly recommend Legal Creatives. If you want to sign up, get in touch with me and I will make that happen. So go ahead and browse around the favorites page, because there are some really helpful tips and tools. Also, I write regular blogs about my client projects or about legal design specific topics. So if you really want to get involved with current developments in legal design, then please find the blogs on my website. And of course, I share a lot about legal design, what I do, the projects that I do, what behind the scenes, but also legal design events, legal design communities throughout the world. I share those on my social media channels, but also in my newsletter that you can sign up for on my website. So really, there's no excuse to stop learning about legal design right now. And if there's anything else you want, just email me and I'll see if I can help. I'd love to answer your questions. And that wraps it up for me right now. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Anna. I don't know if there are still some questions, some specific questions about a topic or something else, but I don't think so. It was all very clear. So Anna, I want to thank you on behalf of AIJA for the very interesting sessions about legal design, and also thank you for participating in this session to all the members. And for me, it were two very enlightening sessions. And I remember that legal design is not just about putting some shapes on a blank canvas, but very important is that it all starts with the questions: who is the client and what does he need to know? You provided us with the right tools to exercise our legal design skills and also to improve the communication to our clients. So thank you for that. And for now, I wish everybody a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.